millions of Americans woke up thinking their food stamps were safe. Then a new order arrived from Washington, and everyone on SNAP must reapply, prove their hours, or face a hard cutoff. January 15th is the line in the sand. With $100 billion in aid and 41 million lives on the line, why are experts warning that up to 15 million people could lose everything over a missed letter or a single form? The real crisis starts now. SNAP is the largest anti-hunger program in the United States, reaching into nearly every community. Each year, more than 41 million people count on these benefits to put food on the table. The program's annual price tag hovers around $100 billion, but the real story is in who depends on it. Nearly half of all SNAP recipients are children. Millions of American kids come from families that struggle to stretch paychecks. Another 12% are seniors, many living on fixed incomes and facing rising grocery prices with little left over. The rest are mostly working-age adults, and a large share of those are holding down jobs, looking for work, or caring for young children or disabled family members. Over half of SNAP households include someone who is working, and in families with children that number rises even higher. Single mothers make up nearly 1 in 3 SNAP households, and about 1/4 of all households have a member who is elderly or disabled. The typical SNAP household brings in less than $1,000 a month before taxes, which is well below the poverty line. For about 1 in 4 families, SNAP is their only income. These numbers cut through stereotypes. SNAP is not a fringe program. It is a lifeline for working parents, retirees, people with disabilities, and millions of children. Any change to the rules or requirements ripples across an entire cross-section of American life, making the stakes of this new policy impossible to ignore. On July 4, 2025, President Trump signed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act into law. The headline figure is $186 billion in cuts to SNAP over the next decade. This is not a trim around the edges. The law rewrites who qualifies and what is required to keep food on the table. The most sweeping change targets able-bodied adults without dependents, often called ABAWDS. Anyone aged 18 to 64, unless exempt, must now prove they work, train, or volunteer at least 80 hours each month, about 20 hours a week, or they will lose benefits after just 3 months in any 3-year period. The new threshold is strict, and the documentation burden is high, so 80 hours becomes the new make or break. The age threshold used to be lower, and exemptions for caregivers, veterans, and people experiencing homelessness have been narrowed or removed. States can no longer easily waive these rules, except in places where unemployment tops 10%, a bar almost no region meets. For millions, the safety net now comes with a stopwatch. Miss the 80-hour mark or fail to document it, and benefits can run out fast. Behind the numbers, the intent is clear. Fewer people on SNAP, less federal spending, and a system that expects recipients to prove their work each month. These new requirements pave the way for a surge of paperwork, eligibility checks, and a massive administrative strain that will test both the system and the people who rely on it. The order went out. Every SNAP recipient, all 41 million people, must reapply within months. State agencies scrambled, and caseworkers call it a paperwork tsunami. Instead of the usual staggered renewals, every household now faces a hard deadline. Notices flood mailboxes by the hundreds of thousands. Some states are mailing more than 500,000 letters in a single wave. Phone lines jam as worried families try to get answers. In Texas, call center logs show average hold times stretching past 35 minutes. In New York, nearly half of all calls drop before reaching a live agent. Caseworkers are swamped. Each recertification takes longer under the new rules, with stricter documentation and more cross-checks against federal databases. Vendors like DXC and Accenture race to update eligibility systems, but IT bottlenecks trigger delays and errors. In states that rely on paper workflows, unopened mail piles up in back offices and returned forms sit in bins waiting for review. Even tech-forward states with digital-first systems report application queues growing faster than staff can process. For many, the process is confusing. Notices arrive in legal language, sometimes in English only, with little guidance on what is actually required. Families with unstable housing or limited internet access struggle the most. The universal reapplication is not just a policy, it is a system reset, compressing years of routine checks into a single, unforgiving window. The risk is not just bureaucratic delay, it is mass disenrollment, especially for those least able to navigate the crush of paperwork. One missed letter, one unanswered call, and a family's food support can vanish overnight. Across the country, food banks are bracing for what many describe as a tidal wave of need. Internal projections from state agencies and policy analysts point to a single, chilling number: Up to 15 million people could lose their SNAP benefits in the coming months, not because they have become ineligible, but because they get lost in the paperwork. Advocacy groups and budget offices base this figure on what happened during the Medicaid unwinding, when millions lost health coverage almost overnight, caught by missed mail, confusing forms, or a single wrong answer. The same forces are now in motion for food assistance, but on an even larger scale. The shutdown that brought SNAP into the headlines last year did more than disrupt monthly payments. It fueled a sense of crisis and suspicion, turning the spotlight on every flaw in the system. Politicians, talk radio hosts, and viral social media posts hammered home stories of waste and abuse, calling for a crackdown. The universal reapplication was pitched as a solution to fraud, but the practical effect is a massive culling of the rolls, with honest families at the greatest risk of falling through the cracks. Food bank directors from Houston to Philadelphia are warning that their shelves will empty faster than they can restock if even a fraction of these projected losses materialize. One director in Ohio put it bluntly, "If 10 or 15 million people lose SNAP, we'll see hunger at levels we haven't faced since the pandemic." The scale is almost impossible to grasp. 15 million is more than the entire population of Pennsylvania. For those already living on the edge, the threat isn't theoretical, it's a countdown. Franklin County, Ohio became ground zero for a high-profile SNAP fraud ring in 2023. Prosecutors charged multiple defendants accused of stealing $150,000 in benefits by cloning EBT cards and running them through small stores as if they were ATMs. Statewide, the scale was even larger, with over $17 million in SNAP fraud and theft reported in just 5 months, according to the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. Those figures sparked headlines and press conferences, and a growing sense of public outrage. The firestorm did not stop there. On TikTok and YouTube, viral clips showed people openly bragging about spending their EBT benefits before they were cut. One video reached nearly 9 million views, with users showing off junk food hauls and thanking taxpayers on camera. These images travel fast and shape public opinion, driving calls for a crackdown, even as most SNAP recipients play by the rules. Official USDA audits put SNAP fraud at less than 1%. That rate is a fraction compared with the stories that make headlines. The real issue is paperwork. Payment errors hover around 10 to 11%, mostly from missed forms, late updates, or confusing income rules. Meanwhile, every dollar in SNAP generates about $1.50 in local spending, fueling grocery stores and jobs. That economic connection means cuts to benefits can ripple through entire communities. Critics point to data showing higher usage in immigrant-headed households. The debate over how to count mixed-status families is fierce, and it is shaping policy arguments and public opinion. For Alicia, a single mom working 2 jobs in Brooklyn, the numbers do not matter when a missed signature means her kids go hungry. She worked enough hours, but without the right proof, her benefits vanished. This is the human cost when system errors and administrative confusion are treated the same as intentional fraud. Right now, millions face losing food aid, not for breaking rules, but for missing paperwork. 1 in 8 Americans depends on SNAP, so the real test is not eligibility, it is surviving the system. The next chapter is not about fraud, it is about who gets left behind.